So we're recording and we're live. So again, there's Damon. I teach a lot of Trek courses. So one of my favorite things to do is just kind of start off with the Q&A. It's a little unorthodox, but it works. A lot of people say, well, I don't even know what questions to ask. Well, if you're thinking it, it's fair that somebody else is probably thinking it. So feel free to ask it. My background has always been in real estate. I grew up in a real estate family, right? So dad is a real estate broker. He's actually in Oklahoma and Texas. And growing up, didn't really care for it, but as an adult, it was a no-brainer. So I've been a real estate broker since 2007, right? So got my license in 2003, 2004, became a broker as fast as I could, and haven't really looked back. 2009, I pivoted and I went to law school. Somebody asked, is this associated with EXP at all? No. No. So the broker's name is Oakmont and Associates. But pivoted and went to law school. So got to law school and quickly realized that I like business, but the law is very adversarial, right? The law said I win, you lose. Business tries to find a win-win. So with that said, didn't really want to practice law. Got the law degree, and of course that helped me have to understand the difference between a lawyer and an attorney, right? So the lawyer is the person that studied law, has a law degree, right? And I love explaining that because most of us use the terms interchangeably. As a society, that's what we do. But the difference is the attorney is the person that can represent you in that courtroom, in that jurisdiction, right? So the attorney in California comes to Texas, and until he or she takes the bar, he's a lawyer in Texas, right? Still an attorney in California. So that's the hat I wear. Didn't bother with the bar, didn't want to be that, didn't want that career representing and advocating and litigating and whatever other adjective you want to use. So luckily I was in a position to do an MBA and a law degree. So I tend to wear my MBA hat a lot more. Business minded, let's find a solution. Right? Let's find a business solution. And of course, if there's no business solution, that means you do need an attorney to go litigate that scenario. So with that said, over the years, built a career in the real estate sector and gotten to a point where I teach a lot of, I'm an educational provider through Trek. So anytime I'm teaching a class, I like to start with Q&A. I have a slide deck. Yes, I can bore you with that, but again, I like to engage it. And even if you ask a question that's on my slide deck, I like to go ahead and answer it. And then of course, when we get to the slide deck, wherever it's at, then we can just kind of breeze over it because we've already talked about it. So with that said, quick housekeeping rules, feel free to unmute yourself when you're talking. If you're not talking, please do be on mute to minimize the background noises. And we can rock and roll through it as fast as possible. So let's say anything in the chat box, any questions. Otherwise, like I said, I have a slide that I try not to bore you with my pre-prepared, right? Stuff. I'd like to kind of see what you guys are thinking, what you'd like to know, and answer those. And then, of course, we'll save them for Q&A at the back end also. But it's just so that I don't go through this, run out of time, and nobody got their questions answered. Okay, pause. No questions yet. Perfect. So I'd like to just talk about the importance of mentoring. A lot of us get into the real estate industry, and of course, the classes that we take teach us how to, stay within the law, right? How to not violate federal laws, state laws, and all the different laws that goes into the real estate industry. And then we get our license. Okay, let me see. I think we might have had a question. The California license with your brokers as well? Just Texas for now, just Texas. But the question was, can I hold a California license with Oakmont? And no, it's just for now, just Texas. So, as I was mentioning, we get our license, we learn how to stay in between the law, how to avoid violating the different laws. But we really don't learn how to, run a business, because that's really what you are. Once you get your license, you become entrepreneur, right? Well, that's what we do. We're built around that idea of setting a time to make sure that we as a broker understand what your goals are, what your niche is. And if you don't have one yet, helping you, define one so that you have that guidance, right? And studies show that entrepreneurs and small business owners who receive mentoring report better growth. That's just a fact, right? So that's step one is get with the broker that allocates that mentoring. I love what Keller Williams does. They promote a lot of education, right? That's their thing is, oh, we have all these different courses and all these different education pieces. But I want to differentiate that between mentoring. That mentoring is just that one-on-one with the mentor, with the coach, right? That can help you think through your model, your business plan. If your primary target is commercial, then your mentor would look different than if your primary target was first-time home buyers, right? So a mentor that really understands what you're trying to do is important. And again, that's one of the things that we try to bring to the forefront. A good mentor will help you kind of understand the current state of the real estate market, right? One of the things that's happened over the last year is the NAR settlement, right? I think that made a lot of people nervous. As far as my personal opinion, I think it's just par for the course. Shifts happen, right? That's just life. So that settlement said, hey, rearrange what you're doing, restructure what you're doing, right? And at the other end of it, just some of these numbers. So membership, right? Non-membership since then, not estimated at 8% decline, right? Now, I want to take a moment, just like I took the time to define the difference between the lawyer and the attorney. Let's talk about the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor, right? So once you take your Texas real estate exam, once you get that TREC license, you go into an inactive status. You satisfy the education requirement. All you're looking for is a broker, right? If your broker is a realtor member, then you have to join the real estate association that your broker is a member of, right? So those are two different things, being a real estate agent and being a realtor. Once you pass TREX courses, you're a real estate agent. It's your broker, right? Depending on whether or not your broker is a realtor or not, that would determine whether you have to join the realtor association. So with that said, a lot of people just use the words interchangeably, and we call everybody that has a real estate license a realtor. Well, that's not quite the case. So with that said, over the last year or so, NAR has forecasted an 8% decline in the membership, right? So that doesn't really have much to do with how many people are getting licenses. It's just saying that as far as the people that do have licenses, it's anticipating going from 1.5 million members to about 1.4 million members, right? The other piece, right, as far as the state of the market is listing commissions since, and this was taken 60 days post-settlement, right? Since the settlement happened, the commission for listing agents increased, not by much, but it increased, right? And it's 0.014. So again, not by much at all. And in the same breath, the commission for buyer's agents went down by 0.055, right? Again, that was just a 60-day snapshot after the settlement. Now, that tells us a couple of things. One, the people, and as far as commissions is concerned, it's not as it's not as damaging as I think a lot of people was expecting. Um, a lot of the propaganda is what I would call it that was floating around right before and up to the settlement was this is going to break the industry. Agents, buyers agents for the most part will not be able to make money anymore. But our research and our experience out here day to day shows that most listing agents, most sellers are still happy to pay for the compensation if and when a buyer is brought to the table. Again, just some numbers, right? Median price, $340,000 across, and this is all Texas for the most part, but we'll say that's a 1.5% increase over the past year. And of course, the mortgage rates, it went as low as 6% over the last 12 months, but I remember kind of in September seeing a little dip. But again, mortgage interest rates are 30 years at about 6.9, right? And 15 years right now at about 6.1. Of course, that changes daily. So keep an eye on that. And it's still obvious, right, that the real estate market is still a huge source of growth, right? It's a huge driver of economic growth as far as the whole economy is concerned. Now, I shared all those numbers just to say, as far as what we're doing, it's still very relevant, right? And I know that most of the people that was invited to this call today are active. So I wanted to kind of bring you up to speed as far as what the market is doing. Now, again, I love definitions. So there are really three license statuses that I want us to focus on today. Once you are done with TREC, once you satisfy TREC's education requirement, and you have a sponsoring broker, you can go to becoming active, right? That's the main license status that we all, that's why we do this, right? Is to get our license active. Satisfy the education requirements, have a sponsoring broker. Those are the two main things. Now, again, whether your broker is a realtor or a non-realtor will determine whether you have to be a realtor or a non-realtor. Okay. The second status, inactive. Inactive basically means that you satisfy the education requirements, right? You just need a broker to sponsor your license. That's why we're here today, right? We've put a system together, an ecosystem, if you will, that allows you to, as long as you maintain your educational requirements, for us to be that sponsoring broker for a annual administrative fee. The third status, right, that we all usually want to avoid is the expired license, right? That means your education requirements are not up to date. And of course, you don't have a sponsoring broker. So active, inactive, and expired. Active means education is on par with TREC's requirement, and you have a sponsoring broker. Inactive means education is fine, you just don't have a sponsoring broker. And a lot of people that go inactive, it's because we get our license thinking it's going to be our license to print money, and then we'll realize that the real estate industry is quite hard to get started in, right? Aside from all the education and the classes and the fees to join and the applications and all of that, the cost sometimes is just prohibitive. Like it can be burdensome. And of course, when you do get your license, if you don't have the right system around you, the right mentorship, you're just like, hey, I got this thing and I know I'm supposed to help people, but how, right? So I feel like there's a lot of people that are inactive, one, because they didn't have access to the mentoring, and two, they just didn't or couldn't afford to keep paying all the fees that are associated with being a realtor. So again, created a scenario where you can still keep your license active without having to pay to join, right? Without having to join TOR, without having to join NAR and the local MLS associations. So getting back to active, what we've put together, like I said, is an ecosystem for $99 a year will keep your license active, right? Now, because you don't have access to the National Association of Realtors or the MLS or SUPRA, you don't have to pay for any of this, right? Which is a good thing. But because you don't have that, then what we'll set up is a referral system, right? So that once you meet a client, I love to use the name Tony as examples. So you have Tony as a client. You're basically going to refer Tony, right, to a realtor. Again, I'm not sure how many people online have actually had to spend the time driving around showing the Tonys of the world, getting them pre-qualified, just holding their hands throughout the whole transaction. What we do here is we allocate an assistant, right, to help get Tony showings, to help Tony through the transaction, and you're just getting paid for the referral. Okay, so you don't have to pay MLS, you don't have to pay realtor dues, you don't have to pay for Supra, because you're just referring Tony's, right, the clients to your assistant. And that's where we come in, right? We play the assistant role. We make sure that Tony gets to see all the houses that he or she wants to see, and make sure that the deal gets consummated according to the contracts. Now, Tony can still reach out to you because you're a licensed agent, right? You just don't have access to all the extras that might be needed. So yeah, Tony can still reach out to you if Tony's parents want to buy or sell. Still reach out to you if Tony's siblings or whatever. Tony's still your client. It's just that we assist in the transaction of it. All you do, your role, is just to maintain your educational requirements, right? Because as long as your educational requirements is active, then, well, let me use the word current. As long as your educational requirements is current, then we can play our role to keeping you active. Once the educational requirements is not current, then you fall into that expired status, and then we really can't help you until you get your education requirements back to current. And so again, the compensation is, and this is a lot of math, so I put an example here at the bottom, right? But what we do is we have a 70% of the referral fee. So let's say you meet Tony, right? And Tony is a referral to somebody in California. Tony's moving to California, right? The ecosystem works that well. And we refer Tony to the assistant in California or Texas or wherever that person might be. Whatever agreement we make with the realtor organization that's actually going to help Tony, right? We get you 70% of that. That's the referral fee. Again, it's a bunch of numbers, so I'm usually better with numbers when I could actually scribble out with a pen and a pad and make sense of it. Let me see, I think we might have a question. I mean, Lester, I was doing the referring client to broker without marketing of any homes. I'm not sure I understand what the question is. There's a question in the chat box. Since we do not have access to MLS, all we are doing is referring the client to a broker without any marketing of any of the homes. Correct, right? Since you won't have MLS, you don't have to worry about which homes are going to be a match, if you will. Since you don't have them, have a super, you don't have to worry about which homes can I go show it to. Can I go show to the client? That will be referred to an assistant. It's one of the secrets to success. I love the word secrets to success, or the phrase, But it always makes me chuckle because I feel like there's really no secret to any of these things, just a matter of consistently doing it. But some people have found a niche in just referring and being a referral agent, right? Again, the few of us that have done this day to day, we know how many weeks and months it might take writing around or communicating or helping a client before they actually close and get their key. But in this scenario where you get to make the referral and move on to the next, it's a lot less. It usually creates a much better business sense if when you do it right. Now, again, the client can still call you. You can get the client. We're not saying that once you make the referral, you're out of the picture. No, you answer questions, and of course, whatever questions that the client has, then you'll work hand in hand with whoever is making the whoever's assistant, right? Whoever the referral agent is. So again, I try to break the numbers down as best as possible, but it's all here. We get the referral fee, and then 70% of that goes to the agent as compensation. Basic next steps, right? What we do is we start with a one-on-one consultation with you, try to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and help with any mentoring that might be needed. Once we go through that phase, you get to interview us. We interview you if you need to. You register for the sponsorship if you decide to move forward. And then, of course, we do the onboarding. So back to Q&As. I'm hoping that after running through the slide deck, there's a couple more questions. It was clear as crystal. Things in the chat. I got a question here. What if they're purchasing a new home with a builder? How does that work because MLS is not required? So basically, so that you don't run afoul, right, of the track requirements by just forcing or just pigeonholing or directing them just to new builders. We still have to make sure that they have access to the MLS somewhere, right? So that they can compare what the builder's offering versus what a resale is offering. Okay. So the same thing still holds. Even if they're purchasing a brand new home with a builder, without access to the MLS and Super and all of that, it's harder to prove that we were able to zealously and adequately and all of those fancy words that Trek requires of us to represent that client. So short answer is, even if they are buying a brand new home from a builder, before they got to that decision, somebody assisted to make sure that that was the right decision, because we compared what the builder's doing versus what a 5-year-old home would look like versus so on and so forth, right? So I hope that answered the question. So I got another question here. If we decided to, so the question says, if we decide to get started with real estate again in the future, would we need to move our license, or could we stay active under our brokerage? So you wouldn't need to move your license. What we've done is we have, if you can imagine, a railroad track, right? So we have a line here that, if you wanted to be a realtor, we have the capacity to sponsor that. And then if you don't want to be a realtor, right, and just want to be active, then we have a parallel line for that. So yeah, it's all within the same organization. We can get you to, as soon as you decide you want to go back to being a realtor, pay the dues and the supras and all of that, then yes, we'll just move you over and get you back on that realtor designation. Yeah, so there's another question here. I'm just trying to understand, as a referral agent, would I find a client and just refer his information to Oakmont, and then Oakmont would send his or her information to another broker so they can help with the home? Is that how it works? So yes, that's the short of it. You have a client. Again, I'm using the name. You meet Tony, okay? And so Tony is referred to Oakmont. Oakmont then looks to see, let's say Tony wants to move to Lubbock, Texas, but Oakmont doesn't have anybody out there, any realtors out there. Then Oakmont will look for the referring broker out in Lubbock to make sure that Tony's in good hands. But yeah, if it was somewhere that Oakmont has an agent that's able to assist, and that's the word I like to use, is just assist, right? So imagine you meet Tony and you say, "Hey, one of my assistants will be walking through this whole thing with you." You might not know who it's going to be at the end of the day, but they are assisting you, right? So by definition, that makes them your assistant. But that's how I like to introduce it. Hey, the assistant will get in touch with you and they'll assist us through this whole entire process. If you have any questions, you can always call or text me. But I don't know, Jennifer or Becky will be helping us throughout this process. Yeah, so again, Latonya was asking, builders usually just need to see if you're an active agent and not with MLS. Builders are fine. Let's assume what you're trying to protect is your license, right? You take this agent, you take Tony, you take Tony, our proverbial client, you take Tony to a builder, right? And then 6 weeks, 6 months later, something goes weird. Tony loses a couple of dollars. Tony gets upset. Tony calls Trek and he's trying to figure out who to sue and why, right? And that's part of what we do, right? We deal with tons of money. We're in a space where, on average, I think I showed the number earlier, the median price in Texas is 340. So by the time you help three people, on average, you've dealt with $1 million of other people's money. It's only a matter of time before somebody gets upset. I've been doing this long enough to know that. It's only a matter of time before somebody gets upset. So that when that person is upset and Trek gets involved, you want to be able to stand tall and say, "Hey, I didn't cross any lines that jeopardized his money. I gave Tony all of the options. I didn't just take Tony to the builder because I was dancing with the builder, right? I gave Tony all of the options, and Tony ended up with this person, with this builder." So yes, we can take it offline. Most part, assume that that statement stays true, regardless of whether Tony's going to go with the builder or not. You don't know that at the point that the referral was made, right? Because you needed to give Tony all the options to look at what a resale would look like, and compare all of those different things before we just say, "Yeah, Tony, here's the builder," and the decision is final. So yes, we do have an office in Houston. Currently have an office in Houston, Dallas, and Waco. Excited about getting the office out in Jamaica just because we wanted to get some international presence and start thinking through how some of our bigger competitors do it. But for the most part, yes, we are in those three local markets right now. Great questions. Make sure I didn't miss any of them. Okay, so that's really all I have. Of course, our lawyers make us say this part, that what we're doing is not trying to guide you or give you any legal or tax information, right? We do hope that we can be very valuable to you as you continue your growth in the real estate industry. I think I saw another question here. Can you address the contract question? Contract that we are agreeing to, such as time frame. So no, the contract is question was, is there a contract agreeing to such as time frame? What we do is we'll start with a one-on-one consultation. Your annual, we charge the $99 for we'll call it, our management fee, right? That covers you for a year. At the end of that year, if you decide you wanted to continue, then you renew at the $99. But as far as contract, I guess you call it an annual contract, because once you pay, you have access to that sponsorship for that year. If 3 months, 90 days later, you decide that you found a better opportunity and you want to leave, then you leave. There's no harm, no foul. Of course, the $99 is not refundable, or what's the word that people use when it's prorated, right? So yeah, that's the length of any contract that you would be doing, if that makes sense. So that was it. That's really all I have. I'll be here for a few more minutes. I'll hang out and answer any other questions, or the contract, you can exit the contract anytime just free. It's not refundable. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, if you decided that, you wanted to get back with Keller Williams, let's say somebody, didn't have the money to pay Keller Williams, and so they went inactive. And then in 90 days, you decided, oh, I just won the lottery. Oh, Keller Williams. Absolutely. You can terminate the sponsorship at any time and move on with whichever brokerage you want to, or go back to inactive if that's what you choose. Absolutely. But thanks for sharing part of your morning with me and our team here. Again, feel free to exit the room if you have any other questions. Contact information is there on the screen, and of course, we'll get you a recording of the presentation. Either the recording or the slide deck, either one, whichever one is more convenient. But we'll get that out to everybody that registered for the event today or tomorrow. Next step, ready to move forward, will just be a one-on-one consultation. You have my contact information here. You can call or text or email, and we'll talk. What I'd like to talk through is just kind of what you're doing, what's your niche, what do you plan, where you are, those kind of things. And then from there, we can get you registered and onboarded.